If you had the attention of the entire world, what would you say?
We can get this together, y'all. As my cousin likes to say, there is too much foolery going on. We're better than this.
Welcome to Inimitable Black Women. I am your host, Donna, and today our guest is Ann Johnson. Ann was born in London, England, and raised in Cheyenne, Wyoming. Ann is a graduate of Prairie View A&M University in Texas, where she teaches, and received a BS in Home Economics. She earned an MA in Humanities from the University of Houston Clear Lake and an MFA from the Academy of Art University in San Francisco with a concentration in printmaking. In 2011, she received the Distinguished President's Faculty of the Year Award. She was awarded Art Teacher of the Year in 2010, 2017, 2022, and 2023. Primarily an interdisciplinary artist, Johnson's passion for exploring issues, particularly in the Black community, has led to engaging works such as the Hoop Dreamin' Collection, the series It Is the Not Knowing That Burns My Soul, and her installation Converse, Real Talk. She has been included in the Texas Biennial in 2013 and 2021. In 2015, she was acknowledged as an artist to watch in the International Review of African American Art. With her focus on experimental printmaking, Johnson was listed as one of the 10 most transformative artists of 2022 by Black Art in America. She is a member of the artist collective Rue. She is a co-founder of the organization Print Matters and the Print Houston Exhibition Series. She is exhibited nationally and is represented by Hooks Epstein Gallery in Houston, Texas, and Spelman Blackwell Fine Art in New Orleans, Louisiana. She is currently a resident at Kayla Art Institute in Berkeley, California. Thank you, Ann, for being here. Yay!
Thank you for having me.
So my first question is, what is your race and ethnicity?
I'm African American, but as most Black folks, we like to say I got Indian in my family. But my father's grandmother was Native, Indigenous. But there was so much mystery about exactly where she came from. The pictures are obvious, but because folks in those days didn't really talk a lot, or they were just afraid to talk about things, we're assuming she's Creek because she was from Alabama with a reddish color hair, Creek Seminole, something like that. But I am African American.
I love it.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. When people approach your work and they see it, what are the stories that you want them to get from it? What is it that you want people to pull from your art?
I tell my students all the time, don't look at the work, look into it. And oftentimes with my work, because it's so different and experimental, the question is, how did you do that? As opposed to why did you do that? And once we get past the how, that makes the why more interesting. And depending on what I'm printing on, like if I'm printing on cotton, that's a conversation all to itself. I'm printing Black faces or Black historical faces on cotton. That conversation should be obvious. If I'm printing on feathers, that's more of my Indigenous heritage, you know. So it's hard for me to tell people. I can tell people my intentions, but people are going to receive the work the way that they receive it. Everybody's going to see something different. I think my work does tell stories, particularly stories, the most current works in particular of Black women, women behind the scenes, women who had to raise other families before they could raise their own, historical as it relates to slavery. So it's just, there is a lot of history, a lot of family history, but a lot of cultural history in the work.
What would you say is your intention? You said you can tell me your intention. So what are your intentions?
It depends because I work in series. Mm-hmm. And as an educator, I'm always teaching, no matter what. I just can't help myself. And so my intention is to have people look at things, look into the work, look into deeper into the history of those connections. You know, let's not be afraid to talk about things. For example, when I did Converse Real Talk, the installation, which is travel, and it'll be going to Kansas City, I thought I retired it. Boy, keep doing this to myself. But it's going to be in Kansas City this fall. But the way that it's set up, it's two chairs that the viewers can sit in, and you're face to face. You're sitting under a tree, and you're having a conversation about current issues. Talk about it. And when I first did that in 2016, the leaves have printed faces, Black faces, peering on your conversation because somebody is always watching, right? And so, that intention at that time, people weren't tearing up the Capitol or hitting people with cars and crowds, but it was an election year. And the goal was to let's have a face-to-face, honest conversation about real issues. And it was in Austin. And people would come in their lunch break and sit down under that tree and have conversations. So those kind of intentions, I couldn't ask for any better result than that.
That's really beautiful. And it's funny because honestly, it sounds like an evergreen piece. Like I know you said I was going to, but it's a piece that like is just as relevant now as it was
Yes.
relevant then. As honestly, you can say it's always been relevant. The idea of having face-to-face conversations with people.
Right.
That's really dope. So when did you know you wanted to like become an artist? Like when did that spark like pop into you? Like was it like older? Was it you a little kid? Like when did it start?
I'm sure I was born into it. My mother's extremely creative. She's a total green thumb, which I am not. But she was a millinery. She made hats. She painted. She took ceramics classes. She painted this wonderful Black Jesus for the church. I'll never forget it, with a big afro. And then our Black church said, no, we want the painting of the white Jesus, craziness. But it comes there. My brother sketched a lot. But because I grew up in Wyoming, I never won any kind of art competitions. Like in Houston, we have the rodeo art competition. Wyoming is very similar. And so while the kids are drawing cow heads and horses, I'm drawing Tina Turner, rest in peace, Prince, rest in peace, Michael Jackson. So I would never place. So I never thought I was good enough to be an artist. So I majored in fashion. I have a high swag meter. But in fashion, uh, swag runs in my family. My father produced, when the Ebony Fashion Fair came through Wyoming, it came through our house. So I had this love between fashion and art. So I majored in fashion, went to fashion school in Arlington, finished my degree in home economics at Prairie View, where fashion was. But by the time I got to Prairie View, because I went to a 2-year specialized school, there was really nothing Prairie View could teach me. So I actually taught a class for a scholarship at Prairie View. And I started to tell myself, my true love is really art. Let's focus on that. And then I began to think of it more as a fine art career by the time I got to Prairie View. And I knew I wanted to come back and teach. So I enjoy the balance. A lot of artists teach because they have to, but I enjoy teaching. And so it's been a great balance for me.
So I'm going to ask you about 3 different areas of your life: business, personal, and creative. And first, we'll start with business. What do you think were the business decisions you made in your career as an artist that has gotten you to the place that you're at now and has given you the longevity that you've had?
I've been patient, and I had to, this might sound strange, I was never satisfied or enjoyed doing commissions or doing something just for the money because it made me miserable. So when I decided to create because I love it, and if I don't sell something, I don't jump off a curb because I don't sell anything. Those were when I changed that mindset and decided I'm going to be a artist. I'm going to take my time. I'm going to make sure my bio's right, my website is right. I'm going to go to workshops, learn about grants, learn how to write proposals, go to the artist talks, go to that whole essence of what it is to be a professional artist in the right circles. My friends are art, that's all I think about. And so that helped me business wise. And I think the patience, you have to learn to accept rejection because that's just part of the game. And so I think that patience, like both of my galleries came to me, I didn't hunt them down. They came to me because I tried to be professional in everything that I do, with great pictures, great documentation. If I'm in a show, we're always raised to be, I don't care if there's 3 people in the show, make sure yours is the best, no matter what. And so that mentality has kind of brought me to a place, I guess I'm seasoned now because I'm an older artist now. But I just got a huge grant. I've been getting a lot of residencies, and all of these people have called me. I haven't had to call them. And I think that's just part of being patient and being professional.
You said that like great documentation. What does that mean?
Proper photographs, the medium in which the work is created, the year it was created, where it was exhibited, catalogs. My artist collective Root, we have a catalog for every exhibit that we've shown together. And in this day and age of print on demand, there's no excuse to not have a written catalog for any exhibition. So that type of data, and that's historical documentation, because as an African American artist coming up, I had to teach myself. Because when I took Impressionism or modern art, we weren't in those books. And I had to teach myself about Black artists. So being in shows where I can create a catalog and documentation, I'm leaving that for the generation behind me.
As an artist that didn't see yourself in like the books or the things that you were studying, how did that make you feel, and how did like that make you approach your career differently, maybe from like the white artists that are in the book or the white artists that you're surrounded by?
I come from a family of activists and freedom fighters. So when I took modern art and we had to do a paper, mine was going to be on a Black artist. It could be frustrating in a sense that we always want to see something that looks like us, right? There's no crime in that. But I would just, when I first went to college, I had a white art teacher named Mr. Black. And
Okay.
so I think it was an art history class or something. And I asked him, I said, are we going to cover any Black artists? And he said, well, you find some and we'll talk about it. No, you find some and let's talk about it. That's not my job. That's your job. So that right there shows you the mentality in academia for African American art. So when things like that happen to me, I always make sure I'm going to make a difference. So whatever I teach, you're going to get a heavy dose of African American art, no matter what the class is. And so, I taught myself everything there is to know about the Harlem Renaissance when I took modern art in college, because that presence was there, but you wouldn't know it from the books, And at the state that we're in now in education, as I keep saying, art teachers are the new history teachers. The way they're wiping everything out of the classroom, you can't wipe away visual evidence. Mm. And so it's so important to show that African American presence in art.
How has being a Black woman affected how you've had to navigate the art world?
There are times where it is frustrating, because sometimes you feel like this is a boys' club. Why are these same guys getting these opportunities? And I know my stuff is better than his, and so again, be professional, documentation, and fight for it, and don't be quiet about it. I did a show. I like to say I'm a retired curator. I've been saying that for about 10 years. But I did a show in 2016, 2017 called How Do I Say Her Name? Mm-hmm. And, Sandra Bland, that was my backyard. I drive by that every day, and I can't tell you how that messes with you driving by that spot, especially when it first happened. We were just, if you're familiar with Prairie View, it was just a nervous wreck just driving to work or driving home. We would follow each other. It's like, okay, we're going to follow each other. Make sure you use your blinker. Don't forget, it was really traumatizing. And, and I'm sure you know this, and I'm not minimizing anyone's death. But when something happens to a guy, we're stopping traffic, we're not going to work, we're having these huge marches, but women are not getting that. It's like, this is happening to us too. So I did this show called How Do I Say Her Name? And I wondered if other artists were grappling with those emotions. And I don't know what to do. This is happening to us too. And it ended up being a pretty powerful show. And it showed that women have a voice in this as well. So I just try to make my work as strong as possible. I think the emotions of the work will speak for itself.
So as a creative, what do you think the things that you have implemented or done in your creativity that has pushed you to the place that you are, what has pushed you to the place that you are at?
Oh, I'm a rule breaker. I don't follow printmaking rules. I don't do anything right. I continue to push boundaries. People print on paper. I don't. I print on cotton and leaves and feathers. And I think there's a uniqueness to what I do. And I think that's what has garnered a lot of interest in what I do. It's one thing to be experimental, but if you put it on the wall and it falls apart, you're not really being successful with it. So I'm very methodical. Like, for example, right now, I'm making bricks. I'm printing on bricks. Working with the Freedmanstown Conservancy in Houston. Freedmanstown, where the emancipated slaves made their way down from Galveston to Houston. And there's a couple of blocks left. And you know how thriving the communities were when you could only be in your community. And one of the things that they did was had these brick paved streets. And so those bricks are very significant to the community. And so I'm doing a project with them and I'm printing images on those bricks, telling that story again. So I think I'm a storyteller.
Oh, you're definitely a storyteller.
A storyteller who likes to play with different methods, particularly of printmaking and installation. And I think being in fashion has also worked well with my installations because I always think that way. I think I like stuff coming out of the wall or dropping from the ceiling. If I were to work in visual merchandising, that's what I would have done, so I can mix that with my art.
Something you said was don't be quiet. What does that mean?
I mean, we have a voice, we need to use it. As the old folks say, a closed mouth won't get fed, right? And so, and you don't have to be a loud person for your work to speak loudly. I had done some great pieces and I took them down. Some great pieces around the word woke, like 4 or 5 years ago. But since the word has been hijacked, I'm not going to let anybody, take pictures of my stuff and start floating it around. But at the time, it was pretty powerful. In fact, it was in the first woke piece I did was in that show, How Do I Say Her Name? And it was people were very taken by it. So I think there's different ways of being boisterous, particularly, as Toni Morrison said, this is the time when artists go to work. When we're in rough times or critical times, artists have you see things in a different way or maybe feel things in a different way.
I love that. So financially, you're talking about, if I didn't sell something, I wasn't tripping off of it, things like that. But as an artist, like I think financials mean so much. It's like the art, you need money to pay for the art, to pay for life, for things like that. Financially throughout your career, what has been some of the financial decisions you've made that has like helped or basically has funded life for you and funded your art and things of that nature?
Well, because I have a career as a professor, I'm good. So I don't stress on leaning on sales of my work to survive. Other artists do, other artists who live on grants or, on commissions. I don't because of, I'm not leaving my job. I enjoy teaching. It has great benefits. I ain't getting no younger. Go to the doctor a little bit more often.
Listen, this is nice.
Yeah, need that insurance, man. So, right. And so, I, I don't have to stress as much as other artists do. Now, in terms of uh, getting a grant, like the first little, well, I won't say first, but for the most part, most of my grants have been small until recently. Um, and when I got a grant, I think it was $2,000 a couple years ago, I bought better equipment.
Mhm.
I reinvested it. I'm a part of the BIPOC awardees this year, which is a little bit more money, and I'm going to invest that into my studio, and be very methodical about how I spend it. Use it to go to better workshops, travel to certain places for the benefit of continuing my work. And I think that comes with being older. We're on God's time. And we get it when we're supposed to get it. If I would have got some of these grants younger, I probably would have went out and bought a car and it'd been gone in a month.
Oh no,
You
not
know,
going in a month.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But when you're older, you're smarter about things, and make smarter decisions, especially when you're putting things back into your practice. Like, a better printing press, better inks, just better supplies in general.
So what is advice you would give younger you about planting the seeds, the financing, the whatever, that now like what are the big things that you're like, I wish I knew then? Or I'm be honest with you, I honestly think when we know things is when we're supposed to know them.
Right.
So it's not like that, but what are the things that you're like, if I had known then I would have probably started this, or I wish I had known this back then, or not on like a regretting, but just like these are things you should know when you're younger.
Yeah.
Life is life,
One, just be patient. And two, don't just grab at any opportunity. One word I cannot stand is networking. Makes me want to throw it. You know, can we donate a piece to, our gala? So, and the networking there is going to be what, when they want your best work, and they don't want to pay you anything for it. If I'm in an auction, it's usually a museum auction where I know I'll get at least 50% of the sale. Decisions like that, way back when I would have probably given a lot of work away just in the name of networking, or you never know who you're going to meet, or my cousin knows somebody whose cousin is somebody who's somebody's NBA brother, that kind of thing. And so I wouldn't have messed with anything like that, younger. Understand, I would definitely not do personal commissions at all, because it's frustrating, especially if somebody, can you paint my grandmother? Could you do this? I don't do that now. May have done it back then, again, in the name of opportunity, but that's something I definitely don't do now, and would tell my younger self not to do, because you're not painting for yourself, or you're not creating for yourself, you're creating for someone else. So those things.
You're one of the things when we're talking about the financials, like you have the grants that happen, but have you had to just like fund your own work, or like has it been a combination of funding with your work and with your grants, or how have you gotten things made?
I don't get a lot of grants. So I'm always funding myself. I call it just investing in myself, investing in my practice.
Yes.
If you want to create something of quality or sell it at quality, then you need to invest in yourself, no matter what your field is.
No, I agree.
Yeah. So, the where I live in Houston, I'm like 2 miles outside of where I could receive a Houston City grant. So I don't get a lot of grants, but the one I just received was for Greater Houston. And so, those opportunities are there. And it's a lot to write for a grant, which is a frustration for a lot of artists, and probably anybody who has to deal with grants. You really need a grant writer for all of that. So at some point, am I going to sit and write all these grants, or am I going to produce work? And again, I have the comfort of saying that because I have a full-time job with benefits. And it's not like that for everyone.
Your residency that you're in now, what is your residency like, the one that you're at, and what do you feel is like the biggest benefits of being in residency?
Residencies are great. because I can just wake up and create and go back to wherever it is I'm sleeping that night. Um, Kala has been awesome. They give us a great apartment to stay in across the street from the studio. And the level of technical assistance that I get here is amazing. Everybody knows their stuff. It's high quality equipment. Everybody is super friendly. I like the Bay. There's something very Southern about the
I,
open
yes. Yeah, I'm happy you said this as someone else who's from like Texas area. There's something
area.
about the Bay that reminds
Yes,
you of Texas. It's weird.
yes,
It was,
yeah,
I went to school at USC, and the first time I went to the Bay, I was like, this feels like Texas.
yeah. Yeah.
It's
People are friendly. They talk to you. Yeah, it's something really cool about the Bay. Yeah,
I don't know what I don't even know if I can pinpoint it because they're
yeah,
different. They're
yeah,
obviously like the coolest people I ever met. Everyone,
yeah,
when I was at
yeah,
school and I meet someone, I'm like, where are you from? You're like really cool. And they were always
yeah,
from the Bay. But there's
yeah,
something
yeah,
about it that feels like Texas. Thank you for saying I can
yeah.
never tell you. I was like, just it's
Yeah,
a
some of it,
vibe.
even, I was downstairs waiting on the Uber and the mailman was in there getting his wobble on. He was like, come on, girl, get up. You got to move,
It
So
feels very
it's
Texas.
so cool. I really like it out
I
here.
do too. I
Yeah,
love
it's
it.
expensive as hell, but I like it out here. This is,
Listen,
look,
it don't
I went
cost like
down.
Texas.
This is my second summer here, and
Yeah.
I do like 3 weeks. Last year when I was here, gas was $6.99 a gallon. $6.99.
You have to use
So
your
now it's 480. Now it's 489. I'm like,
you know?
when I was in Houston, I think it was 282 or something like that.
Our gas right now, I think it is in Austin is like $3, which is
Yeah,
still
yeah.
high for us.
Right. Exactly. It's high for Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, just the support here. They're so good to me here. They're so sweet. But the technical assistance and the equipment that I'm able to use, it's amazing. It's amazing. The other artists that you meet, I mean, some fantastic artists, some fantastic muralists, printmakers, and everybody's just really, friendly and open and wants to learn. And so, yeah, I really dig it.
I love that. Okay, so how do you take care of your mental health?
It's interesting. I just finished this 21-day um, centering prayer meditation thing, which guided meditation is still a little better for me because, sometimes I have just a mixtape going on, but
Not
learning to
mixtape.
be, you know, meditation mixtape. I'm supposed to be focused and I'm thinking about the stuff. But I've just learned to be still and sit down. Sometimes that's what you need to do. And so I don't do drama. I walk down, I just don't do drama. So I've just learned to I don't really have emotional outbursts or anything like that. I guess it comes with getting older. Just kind of chill with it. And I'm of the mentality that things happen the way they're supposed to happen when they're supposed to happen, no matter what the situation. So I've been good so far. So I think I have been good.
I think you've been great. I mean, I don't know. I know. It's not gonna listen. If anyone can know, it's you. So I believe. So
Yeah.
for teaching, I mean, you teach through your art, you tell stories through your art. Um, but encountering your students, I'm really curious, what is like the biggest lesson that you would want for like your students to take about themselves? Like, what is something that meeting like these kids or the students or who's coming in and out, you're like, you guys need to just get this. And I think you'll be able to handle it.
Um, this is a different breed of student.
Mhm.
They're so attached to their phone. Especially this COVID kids, these last 2 years, they've been in a cocoon and now they're out. And it's almost like you have to get them to trust you again. Um, what I want them to get from my class as I teach art is to not look at the work, but look into the work. I tell them that on the first day. In terms of producing work, I want them to challenge themselves. Trust yourself. You I mean, I love it when I have students in drawing who have never drawn anything before and they do this fantastic artwork
Mm.
because you trust yourself and you listen to the process. I'm not going to draw it for you. You're going to have to fight through this. And that's probably one of the things that I teach them to do is to fight through, not fight against the creativity, but fight with it. So you can start resolving some of these creative issues that you have. Just flow with it, you know. Experimental, there's nothing wrong with it, and accidents are your best friend. So I try to keep them on that lane. I always tell them, I'm your cool teacher. When you come to Miss Johnson's class, you can draw outside the lines because art, where I am, it's in the graphic design program. So those are computer kids and everything is structured. So when you get to me, I'm like, draw outside the lines, you know, let loose. So that's, I try to give them that freedom when they come through my classes. African American art history is probably my favorite class to teach because I'm giving them the history, I'm giving them a foundation, I give them projects that keep them involved. Like, for example, Carrie Mae Weems, photographer, I had them look at her work and then they have to create a graphic using themselves called Slavery in 5 Words. So you have to describe slavery in 5 words or less. So now you're thinking, right? You're thinking, how am I going to use an image of myself and tell that story? You know, really think about those 5 words. Or I'll have them do, there's this site, it's called Freedom on the Move, and it's a database of runaway slave posters. So they have to choose one and bring it to life and then create a video. You know, you are now a runaway slave. Tell this story. And it's phenomenal. The best work comes from biology majors or engineering majors because they're looking for a creative outlet. And then I also have a conversation, and I say this on the first day. I said, I know there's at least 2 or 3 of you in here who want to be a poet. You know, you want to be an artist, but somebody in your family told you go get that nursing degree and you can paint on the weekends. I know you're in here. You don't even have to raise your hand, but it's okay. You can actually make a living as an artist. And I'll explain to them how they can do it. So I try to be that open door for especially those creative students. I learned a long time ago that my purpose is to nurture creative minds, and that's what I try to do.
Something that you said was really interesting that stuck out to me was the fight through the like frustration of creativity of like
Mhm.
creating.
Yeah.
What has been the biggest like thing that you think assists people to do that? Because as a creative, for me, it is very hard when it can be very hard. But
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
did fighting through the frustration is very interesting. I haven't really heard that.
Because students, you know, this is a video game generation, and they want everything to just be so perfect. And you have to give it, the person who designed that had to deal with their struggles. So embrace your mistakes and grow from it. And that's how you fight through it. You know, you might drop some paint on something by mistake and it'd be the coolest thing that's ever been done. You know, so I kind of, you know, my door is open for that and kind of help them see, I guess, mistakes in their mind in a different way. You
Mm.
don't have to be clean cut and perfect all the time when it comes to creating.
What event in your life has impacted you the most?
Mm, I don't know. That's a tough one. I've been kind of flowing.
Well,
Yeah.
what do you think? Well, maybe then, maybe not your life, maybe like as a creative, like what event do you feel like has affected you as a creative the most? Maybe that, like, trying to think.
I think, well, when I went to grad school the second time to get my terminal degree, you know, when you're in education, academia, you have to get your terminal degree. And I was done with school, but it's like you get that degree to keep your job. But I enjoyed it, the MFA. And I think the turning point was I was 40. Well, I was late 30s when I started grad school. And I was an older student. Older students take school much more seriously. But I had a teacher who let me fly. And she when she saw me printing on feathers, she was like, we're going to roll with that. She didn't force me to try and do additions or print on paper. And she just influx of ideas. Did you know this about that? Did you know this about that? She's so smart. And she's actually, I might see her next week. She's actually still in the Bay. And she came to see me last year. But she let me fly. And I think that between her letting me fly and then Reverend Tally at Prairie View was my Prairie View mentor, just following him around. This is how you do a press release. This is what, do this and go see that. He kind of showed me how to be an artist professionally, but she showed me how to fly as an artist. And I think that was in terms of where I am now and being a printmaker and experimenter. I never thought I'd be a printmaker. I was afraid of printmaking. Traditional printmaking involves acid and stuff. I don't like that kind of stuff. But I'm a green printmaker, and she just let me fly, and whatever I did, we would have these deep conversations, and I think that was really a turning point.
What do you think creatives can learn from you?
That it's okay to draw outside the lines. It's okay to try something different. As long as you're not going to blow up anything, messing with chemicals, give it a shot. They bring me so much stuff at Collage that they want to see me print. They're bringing me tree bark. And they were like, you think you could print on that? Just so much stuff because that's the kind of energy I give. Mm-hmm. Try something. Don't be afraid to step off the curb is what I would say. Don't be afraid to draw outside the lines. Don't be afraid to try something different outside of your box.
What does success look like to you?
Success for me is not necessarily, I love a good check, don't get me wrong. But being able to have people call me and me not having to seek people out. And that's been my experience the last couple of years. Kala called me. I didn't know who Kala was. They saw me, COVID was good for artists. If you were financially stable, it was good for artists because all of these conferences and workshops, they were all online and they were all free. And I spoke quite a bit. And because of that, I got a residency in North Dakota. I got a residency here. I have a residency coming up in Kansas City. Galleries, shows are coming to me. I've been invited, shows in Los Angeles, in New York. To me not having to chase anybody down for an opportunity to show my work and people come to me, that's success. Getting a check on top of that, that's even better, for purchasing existing work. So I don't have to create anything specific to the cause.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So last, where can people follow and find you?
On Instagram, I am at Soul Sister Art, SOLE. Soul Sister Art. My website is soulsisterart.com. So you can find me in those two places. My Facebook, my IG is clean. It's all art. Facebook might have a little something political every now and then. But my Facebook is, yeah, little something. Might have a family pictures. But it's Ann Soul Sister Johnson on Facebook. So you can find me in any of those three spots.
Okay, wait, I know I wanted to ask you this. So I obviously know how you got your nickname. But my question is, when did you decide, what did you tap your foot and how did you discover my foot is a utensil for art? What was the moment?
That's almost exactly what happened. I don't talk about it much anymore because people get so distracted.
Okay, understandable. You talked about
yeah. But I have it on my website. So Soul Sister, I got that name SOLE. People think it's because I do have a tight sneaker game. Trying to get that Adidas endorsement, but it's because I do portraits with my feet. I don't do them anymore. The last one I did was of Obama. Had a moment. 2000 the first inauguration. So the last two I did, I think, were in 2009. But it's because I paint portraits in my feet, and very much I was in. This when I was just finished fashion school, and once I finished fashion school, I started leaning towards my heart is really in art, and I took a class at TCJC. They called it Harvard on the Freeway. It was TCJC South in Fort Worth, the hood one, and we were doing portraits on. And I had some raw canvas, and I literally stepped in some paint, and I was like, "That's kind of cool." And at the time, I had the Mickey Howard hair, the Gumby that was going
Yes,
up.
I know.
Remember that?
Yes.
And used to wear the little clips to get your waves right. And I had that I had that haircut, and it was great for a footprint. And I had these little Fendi shades, and I'm not a Jordanologist, but they were the Air Jordan 3s because that's the only pair I ever bought in my life from Redbird Mall. And
Yes, River Mall,
the
man.
Blackbird girl,
River
they
Mall
had
was a
layaway.
minute.
They
Yeah.
had layaway.
Yeah.
And I got them, I think at the time, Children's Foot Locker, because you know how girls, you know how we do. And I think it was $54, something like that. And then I got these Fendi glasses to match. But anyway, so I literally had stepped in some paint, and I was like, this is kind of cool. And that was my first foot portrait. Then I just started developing it and developing it. And you can see some of them on the website, Whoopi
Yeah.
Goldberg,
I know.
Dennis Rodman.
I saw the.
Yeah,
the
my mother has
one.
most stuff.
That was the one I
Yeah,
saw.
my mother has most stuff.
Aw.
Yeah, but it's really like tap dancing. It's really bare footprints, and I would do a little detail with my fingers, or use a brush around the eyes. But yeah, that's the history of Soul Sister. So that's where that comes from.
I think it's
Yeah.
so dope. And it's a beautiful accident that led
Yeah. Again, accidents are your best friend.
Do you have any like recommendations, like books or anything that you would say for artists, like check out this book, check out this person, this work, like any recommendations?
I think you should be aware of your history. One of my favorite historical books is actually by Romare Bearden, African American Art History. I thought it was one of the best ever created. It's a big book. It's like this big. It's huge. And you can probably get it for $7 now on Amazon. That was a great book. Harlem Renaissance book. I think you need to know your history, even though we have Nicolene Thomas and Basquiat. And, I get on students all the time. You're infatuated with this crown and Basquiat. You can't even say his name correctly. You don't even understand the kind of work that he created or who he was. So that I would, I'd recommend some of those historical books. I tell any artist, have your phone ready. If somebody wants to see your work, you have a folder of your best work. We don't want to see what you ate last night. I don't want to see your beautiful grandmother. I just want to see your work. So be ready. If somebody comes up to me right now, what do you do? Boom, this is what I do. So stay on top of that. Those are my biggest advice. But the African American art book by Romare Bearden, to me, is one of the best.
And thank you so much for letting me interview.
Oh, thank you, Donna. I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, thank you for sharing.
Sure.
All right, and that is it. Thank you. And another week of Intimate Black Women. Bye, y'all.